how's the leadership situation going in the Greens at the moment? It seems like it was pretty big news 2 or 3 weeks ago, but that's still not sorted out yet. We're still finding out who's going to be Marama's co-leader. Is that the case at the moment?
Well, the only candidate is James Shaw.
But correct me if I'm wrong, because we were trying to figure this out on the show. You can have that, has to be 75% approval for someone to continue on. But now if there's 51% approval, is that enough for James? Or does it have to be 75% again?
He does
or it
have to get
reopens the
75%.
nominations?
Yeah. He does have to get 75%. And I guess one of the key things that probably wasn't communicated very well, even to members of the party, was that there was many fewer votes than there could have been. So normally at a conference, you had 100. We had 150 delegate places, and last year when it was a contested co-leadership as thing, there was 140 delegate votes cast.
Wow.
And at this one, and I think this is because of COVID being in the community and people, kind of not wanting to attend an AGM in person. In the end, it was online, but it didn't get moved online until 4 days before the AGM. And so they were struggling to get people to be delegates from around the country. And there were only 107 delegates attended and voted. So that was quite a big drop, 107 out of 150. So it was more votes not cast than votes reopen nominations against James. And
right.
Presumably most of those delegate votes, if they probably would not have been reopen nominations, because my guess, I can't say for sure, but my guess is that people who are happy with the leadership weren't motivated to show up and vote in this election because they didn't think they had to,
right.
So it's not, he still has to run a campaign and convince members to vote for him and to get 75%. But there were also changes to the delegate rules that were made at this AGM. So it's actually a different distribution of delegates now, because previously the way our delegate rules worked, some parts of the country that had lots of members and lots of electorates had lots of delegates, and other parts of the country that had lots of members but not so many electorates, like they were concentrated, lots of members concentrated in a few electorates, only had a few delegates. So arguably, it's going to be different. It's going to be a different set of delegates, and there'll be different people who turn out to the meetings, and maybe James will convince some of the people who voted reopen nominations, or maybe a lot more members will just show up and say, we want James to continue. If they could vote, if they voted reopen nominations again, I think that would definitely be a sign that, that James should stand down. But I don't expect that to be the outcome. And I think the people who did vote reopen nominations wanted a contest and wanted someone to stand against him. But
so your expectation is James will be the leader, the co-leader. That's yes. Your expectation? Because I'm from the outside looking in, the idea that, like, I understand we had a debate on this here with George, and I was like, how can 30% of the people stop this happening? And George was like, well, no, 30% of the people voting has enabled something to happen, which is the nomination to be opened. So I'm like, I can see how that works. But now that there is only one nominee, if those 30% come at the same vote, it does feel like they'll be stopping something, which feels a bit peculiar. But then maybe I don't have the Green mindset of, making sure everyone's on board or whatever it is that could possibly happen. And I just feel like it would be a bigger waste of your time and resources for the Greens in particular to then spend X amount of weeks and months looking for another co-leader. And then that might happen again next year. And I'm just like, oh, anyway, just
and I don't know that people thought their reopen nominations were going to be successful. There might be some people who assumed it was just sending a signal and not that it would actually get over 25%. And again, it was 30%, but it was 30% of way fewer votes than what would normally be. So, and I think that if it had been 140 votes or 150 votes, and it's still been 30% reopen nominations, and we had really felt like, whoa, there's significant, I think, maybe James would have thought twice before putting his name forward again. I don't know. I probably shouldn't speculate on this.
Yeah.
But there was enough of a question about whether or not this was really representative of how the members felt, or whether it was just that group was the people who were dissatisfied and concerned were overrepresented in the sample of delegates and the members showing up at branch meetings. And so now we'll see.